Okay, so it looks like we're recording. Now what I'm going to do, as you all are here, welcome. I'm Erica Ireland. I'm the Dietetic Internship Director here at California State University, Fresno. I'm excited to have you attend our virtual open house. I have a poll for you, so I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. So there should be a poll that comes up on your screen at this point. You can mark more than one, but feel free to take a look at that for a minute while I get everything going here. Okay, so hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to at least take a look at the poll. It looks like we've had 85% response. So I'll give just a few more minutes or seconds for that. I'll take a drink of my tea. Welcome. I'm just bringing in a few more folks. Welcome to our Dietetic Internship Open House. I have a poll up. If you want, you can check more than one. Take a minute. It's going to help me how we're going to proceed moving forward. Okay, so we have about, looks like everybody's in for the poll. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. Oh, it's only letting you pick one option. I just saw that. I wonder, let me edit real fast. See if I can edit it. No, not. Well, sorry about that. That's my fault for not clicking that box right at the end. It's not really letting me edit it. It's moving to a new question and not letting me go back to that one. So that's okay. It's okay. What I was interested in was if people have specific questions. I wanted to give you kind of a lay of the land. What we're going to do is I have just kind of an introduction, very short, 6 slides that we're going to go through that gives some general information about the program and probably answers some of the questions that some people might have. That's kind of how I've built this over the years, is to try to make it so that it's answering the questions that you might have. But then after that, I want to open up the floor and kind of just have a Q&A session, and people are able to ask any questions that they might have. I also have a real live dietetic intern here. Lizbeth is here, and she's going to introduce herself, and you can also ask questions to her that might be more appropriate than I can answer. So that's kind of how it's going to start. What I would like to do is, if you could, I'm trying to just take roll in case any of you want to get a recorded version of this. If you could put your name and your email in the chat, Lizbeth is taking notes for that and will let me know who needs to get a copy of this, but I will also just put it up on our website. So with that, please feel free to blow up the chat with that information right now. And then what I will do is I'm going to let, so I've introduced myself as Erica Ireland, the Dietetic Internship Director. I've been the Internship Director for about the last 8 years, and our program has been in existence for over 20 years. So I'm excited to continue that momentum going forward with a new cohort, which most of you are probably thinking about the spring match and applying for the spring. With that, I also have with me Lizbeth, and I'm going to go ahead and let Lizbeth introduce herself. She is one of our current interns. So you have the floor, Liz.
Hey everyone, my name's Lizbeth, or I just go by Liz too. So like Erica said, I am the dietetic intern period. And I just graduated in May of last year, and I applied and I was accepted into this internship. So far, it's a bit different than what I expected, just with everything going on, but I'm enjoying it and I'm very happy that I'm in this internship.
Thank you, Liz. And again, you can ask some questions once we go through this. If there's questions that Liz can answer as well, we'll team kind of take the questions. Okay. So again, welcome everybody. It is 1:06. We're going to get started with the presentation. We also have a short video that we'll watch. So with that being said, here is our current cohort of dietetic interns. Most of them you can also see on our website. They have their own little section, but so yes, it has been a definite year for these interns, but it's also taught us so many things. So in that said, let's learn a little bit more about our program. So what I'm going to do now is click into the slides and see if I can get them to move. Okay, so this is a presentation that I typically give during recruitment time. So that's why there's the QR code and the information about the signing up for the link. Don't worry about that. What I want to talk to you about is a little bit about our program overall. At this point, some of you might have heard internship directors talking about this or not talking about this, but we have standards from our accrediting agency that we have to abide by. And one of those standards that we normally have is we have to declare a program concentration. And so our program concentration is culturally competent health promotion and disease prevention. So for those of you that are not aware or not from the Fresno area, I heard our provost give a statistic the other day that I haven't actually verified, but it sounds legit. And he said that we are the 10th diverse city in the nation. So Fresno is the 10th diverse city in the nation. So it does make sense that we have this culturally competent health promotion and disease prevention, because what plagues us in our particular area is a lot of disease that's related to obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, asthma. And so when we look at that, we have a melting pot of diversity and health issues. So that's why our program concentration is that. And so what we will do, and it's woven throughout all of our rotations and all of the coursework that we have in our internship, is to offer you a little bit more cultural diversity about our population and the populations that live within this Central Valley and their health disparities. Now, what I want to tell you about the program concentrations is that for those of you that haven't heard, this is where I was saying if other internships directors have mentioned to you at all, that we will stop declaring a program concentration with our next, we're going up for new revisions to our standards. And so this new revision that we have, we won't be having a declaration. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to change our internship at all, because we will still focus on these things because this is what's in our valley. Our program length, for those of you that are interested or thinking about this, is that we follow the academic year because we are a university. So we start in the fall and we end in the spring. And during that time, there is an elective rotation that happens in January as well. So pretty much you're starting in mid-August and you're finishing in mid-May, which makes it about a 9 or 10 month program, depending on how you calculate it. Within our internship, we're offering you the experiential supervised practice, but in addition to that, we are also going to be offering you 8 units of transferable graduate credit. So this program will not leave you with a master's, but it will give you the 8 units towards a master's degree. We have been lucky enough at the university to reopen our master's program. So what we are going for eventually is a combined MSDI, but right now that's not what this is. So you would get 8 units of transferable credit if you were interested in pursuing a master's degree, which I'm also hoping some of my current interns are thinking about, because then they can just re-enroll into our master's program and get their master's, but they would also be getting their supervised practice verification statement signed off so that they could sit for the RD exam. So when you would come in, it would be the same way. So what I mean by that is that you'll get the 8 units. And at the end, if you're interested and want to continue to stay with Fresno State for a master's program, that would be an option that would be available to you to apply to our master's track, but this is not a master's track. And so our program size is 11. I mentioned to you that I've been the internship director for about 8 years. One of the things that I know is that the need in the Valley is very strong. I'm also an alumni of Fresno State. I did my undergrad there and my master's program as well. So in that sense, I know that we need dietitians in the Valley, and I really have been trying to increase our number of slots. And so we've been able to do that for the last, this is our second cohort of having 11. So we will have 11 spots available for the spring match, which would then start you in fall 2021. Okay, so let's move on. I just wanted to show you, now again, this is a presentation that's made for non-pandemic situations. And so what we're looking at here is some of the unique experiences that our internship offers. And the reason why I like to put this up is that a lot of people will check out the different types of rotations is one of the reasons why they apply to different programs. And specifically with ours, there's a lot of interest in our prison rotation. So what you're seeing there to the left is our actual Corcoran State Prison rotation. And so even this year with pandemic conditions, we were able to get all of our interns, with the exception of one, through the prison system before the COVID really got heavy and strong. So all of our interns were able to actually still go to the prison and have that experience. It's one of the largest food service skill situations that you can see. They serve over about 10,000 meals a day through their blast chill system. So it's really exciting. Plus you get to see the underground side of the prison and how people steal food to barter it. And so they actually have to watch them. So it's very, very unique. And we have not lost an intern yet. In all seriousness, you're very safe when you're there. You're never alone. A supervisor is always with you. So again, it's a very unique experience. Plus, for those that might be interested in that area, then you know what it's like to work in a corrections facility if you think you want to pursue a career in that area, because it's very lucrative salary-wise. But some of these other pictures are just some of the other things that we have available to us. We try to be big on public policy. We try to have a lot of nutrition education because it's health promotion, disease prevention as part of our program concentration. In addition to that heavy clinical experience that you still get with about 10 weeks of clinical medical nutrition therapy that comes through our rotations. And our rotations are 1-to-1. And so what I mean by that is that when you go to a rotation, you're not with typically other interns. It's just you and your preceptor 1-to-1. However, there's some times where that might not be the case. The prison was one of the ones where sometimes we sent 2 at a time, or sometimes in our entry-level clinical, they like to have 2 at a time. But for the most part, it's 1-to-1. And our schedule kind of looks something like this. So we have currently about 21 different preceptor affiliate sites that you go through in a rotation academic year. Now, that being said, with COVID, we did lose a few, but honestly, we did not lose that many. So it's still setting at about 16 to 17, and I've added in some different ones that we've done because we lost some. So, it's kind of averaging out. And if you were to ask me, obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what it's going to look like in the fall. It does appear, fingers crossed, if they're able to launch this vaccine campaign, that hopefully everybody would have an opportunity to get vaccinated. And the announcement that our university made is that they are intending to go to face-to-face instruction starting in the fall. So I'm assuming that also would relate to face-to-face for all of our internship sites as well, pending this rollout of the vaccine is successful. So with that being said, I do kind of think that you would spend 1, 2, or 3 weeks at any given rotation. And a lot of times candidates are very interested in that part of it because they get to see so much. They get to see, again, this diversity of all these different areas. If I was looking at the flip side of that, one thing I would say is that then you're learning a new job every 1, 2 to 3 weeks. And so that does get old after a time because sometimes you don't even have a desk and, where do I park? And do I leave my purse in the car? And, that gets old after a while, but you get to see a lot more. So that's usually what attracts people to applying to our program. Mondays, we have dedicated to our master's or graduate level coursework that we have. So on Mondays, you would not be in a rotation. We would have academic day for you. And within that academic day, it tends to start later in the afternoon. And the reason that we do that is actually to allow the interns to make appointments if they need to go to the dentist or the doctor or some kind of appointment that they need to do. They can do it on Mondays and not take that time away from their experiential learning that while they're with their preceptors. So we tend to start class at about 11 and it usually goes till 5 or 6, sometimes 7, and then we start a little bit later in the springtime. So that's kind of what it would look like Mondays, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're with your preceptor and you're going to work the schedule that they work. So most likely if they work mornings, then you're going to work mornings. If they work evenings, you're going to work evenings. And in very small situations, sometimes there are preceptors that work like 4-10s and they have a day off during the week. And sometimes they have to work on a weekend. You would assume that schedule, but they give you that schedule ahead of time. So we don't typically work on the weekends, although every once in a while there might be some weekend work or a rotation that requires you to do that. But they let you know ahead of time when you contact them and let them know you're going to be their next intern. They give you their schedules. Okay, now the big picture though that I want to talk to people about is that really what I consider this, and some people that some of my past interns that have now graduated have told me that this is true, and some others said, oh, not so much. But what we really equate this to is having a full-time job, because you're working 40 hours a week, pretty much. You're working 32 Monday through Friday, but then you still have 8 hours of instruction. And within the instruction, you usually have coursework that you have to do. And then within the rotations, not every rotation, but majority, or at least half of them will have some kind of pre-study guide or pre-work that you need to do, or at least do while you're in the rotation. So to me, it's like being a full-time student and being a full-time, working full-time. So I think that it's very invested in that perspective. But so the question goes to, can I have a job while I'm in the internship? And this is what it goes down to. It depends, I guess, on how well you can balance what I call full-time work and full-time being a student. Some people are able to work on the outside. And I don't mind if they do, because I do understand that you have to pay rent and you have gas and you have all of these expenditures while you're in your dietetic internship. And I want to be absolutely flexible with that. What I tell people is that if your job is affecting your performance in the internship, then I may have to ask you to stop it. It's not recommended that you have a job, but I can also tell you that I've had interns have a job, go completely through and be absolutely fine, and actually told me the workload was fine. So that's why I'm saying some will say, it wasn't quite full-time, but I like to be transparent. And in my opinion, I think that it's the work of being a full-time student as well as holding a full-time job. We're almost done, and then we can start this kind of opening up to some questions. Now, this is usually where a lot of people have the questions, and I want to make sure that people understand the expense of this. When you go into an internship, I think it's one of the scariest pieces, right, is how am I going to pay for this? So I want everybody to understand a little bit about where we get our costs from. So I have good news and bad news. So I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what I mean by that is that the good news is that we are able to, because we're a publicly held university, we're able to offer you federal student loans. So some places are not able to do that or set up that way. So we are able to do that. However, the Department of Education, who's the one that oversees those federal loans, they recognize our program a little differently. And that's what I want to make sure that people understand, that you will be offered a student loan if you are accepted into our program and want to take a student loan. Again, no one has to take a student loan, but you will have an opportunity to apply through the FAFSA program and get that. The only issue is that what they consider us is that they consider, the Department of Education considers us, oops, didn't mean to move, considers us a 5-year postgraduate type of program, meaning that they consider you in your 5th year of like a bachelor's. So that makes a difference in the amount of money that you get offered. And so that's why I really want to make sure that everybody understands this piece, because the other side of the university is that you're taking master's levels courses. And so you're paying graduate tuition at a master's level, but the student loan is only going to give you an amount that they're recognizing you as a 5th year bachelor's. And so I think that's a dichotomy, and I advocate every time that I possibly can that that's ridiculous. But if you were in a full-blown master's program, you would be offered more financial student loans. Nobody gets financial aid at this point, but student loans. So here's what you want to know. If you are an in-state resident, that our academic costs, the way that I costed it out is for the whole year. So for the whole year to come to our program, now pending, again, the university doesn't have any fee increases, and we haven't even published our fall. On our website, you can only get spring. It's about $8,000 for in-state tuition. So that's what you're going to pay out of pocket. So if you're looking at our how do I pay or the tuition page, you're going to be in a master's level 7+ unit type of area, and that's going to equate to about 8,000. And then if you're out of state, you have to add in that additional 300 and I think it's $46 or $96 per unit. So it ends up being about 14,000 for the academic year. Now, why I'm pointing that out is that's how much you have to pay, but then based off of student loan, and this does say financial aid, but again, it's a student loan area that you're going to be offered 5th year student. And so the max, if you're dependent, is 7,500, or it's 10,000 if you're considered independent. So for those of you that know your dependency status, this usually has to do with if you still have, if your parents still claim you, or if you have to include your parents' income, then you're considered dependent. If you don't have to list your parents, then you're usually considered independent at that point. So if you're independent, then they're going to offer you $10,000 in student loans, and that's more than enough to cover the tuition, and you'll be fine. However, if you're considered dependency status, where you having to, that issue with your parents, then you still are going to probably have to come from some out of pocket just to pay tuition. And that's just tuition. That's not including rent, gas, mileage, car insurance, health insurance, all of those things. So I want to make that perfectly clear so that you have an idea going into it. Now, what do other interns typically do if they really need all of that assistance? You can also seek private student loans. So you can get this student loan through the federal government, and then you can also get private student loans if you do need more money. So I did just want to kind of point that out a little bit. Now, here's I said the good, the bad, and the ugly. I told you the bad and the ugly. Here's the good news. The good news is that one of our rotations that we have, it's our long-standing, been with us since the beginning, has been the VA hospital. It's one of the areas that all interns will rotate through. And they have been able to, through their VA system, the VA system at the federal level has money that they can provide to internships. And so our VA is able to provide our interns, when they come through there, depending on their criteria, a stipend. So the stipend comes directly from the VA. It does not come from Fresno State, which is why it's not offered that we have a stipend if you look at certain different things, because it's something that happens from the VA. And again, they've asked me to make sure that I'm very clear that it's based on their budget, and as their budget, if their budget got cut, then that's something that could possibly get cut. Now, I can also tell you in the 23 years that we've had them doing this stipend, they've never had to cut it. But that doesn't mean things can't change. But at this point, he hasn't told me that anything is on the horizon. So I do hopefully would anticipate that when you would come in, if you matched with us in the fall of 2021, that VA stipend would be there. And it's based on the amount of hours that you do with the VA. So some of you that are in the rotation, if you've looked at the lineup to see, some will go to, when we talk about our clinical experiences, we have 3 large hospitals. We have the VA, we have Community Regional Medical Center, and we have St. Agnes Medical Center. The way that it works is 4 will go to the VA, 3 will go to Community Regional, and 3 will go to St. Agnes. So if at the beginning of the internship, I have someone who definitely is very interested in making sure that they get VA experience, either because they really are interested in the VA or they need the money, I do a survey at the beginning when everybody's onboarded. And so I'm able to put 4 people that can spend a little bit longer at the VA and probably will get more money based off of those, rather than some that'll just do their food service and a little bit of outpatient at the VA. So I hope that kind of clears that up a little bit. Again, if you have questions, hold off for just a few minutes, and then we will be having a question and answers time. Let me move back into my slides. Okay, now this is the other part where I'm gonna let you guys decide if you want to see the video. Now, I ran this virtual open house last week, and everybody wanted to see the video. So, but again, it's streaming, and I get nervous about all of these things, and I don't want to bore you. But this is pretty much what I've polled some of our last interns that have come through, and I said, what advice do you have for candidates? And so some of them wrote these things down a couple years ago, and then in the midst of that, sometimes we've done some videos. So I have 2 videos. The one video that I would show you is actually our interns from last year. And this was all done before COVID. But there's a video that I can show you that's 4 minutes long if you want to see that we've put together kind of a piece that what they think some of the things that might be helpful for someone applying. So now I'm going to ask you all if you want to see the video. So if you have an interest in watching the video now while we're live, because it's only 4 minutes, and then we can open it up to question and answer, or we can go directly into question and answer. So if you are interested in seeing the video, please in the chat just mark a 1 if you want to see the video, and a 2 if you're not interested in seeing the video and want to go directly into the okay, so it looks like majority of the people that we have on are helping me out with that. So the one thing that I need to do at this point is I do have to stop the screen sharing, which means that when I do this, there is a possibility that some of your faces may show. I'm trying to avoid a lot of that. So if you don't want your face showing because it's being recorded, then please turn off your screen right now. It's totally fine. I won't get offended. Okay, I'm stopping the screen. And now we're going to move into the video. But the other thing that I need to do is I'm going to switch to a higher Wi-Fi in my house to make sure the streaming is good. Okay, so you all should still be able to hear me okay. And I think now my streaming is on my good area. And what I'm gonna do is put this up and make sure that I'm still screen sharing and you can see my desktop. Okay, so thumbs up if you can see YouTube kind of ready to get streaming. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I will monitor the chat. If for some reason as I'm streaming it's choppy or you can't hear it or something like that, then just put a 2 in the chat so that I will stop the video. But I'm gonna go ahead and start and I think we'll be fine.
I chose to apply to the Fresno State Dietetic Internship Program for a couple reasons. One being that you do receive master credits. That's something I would like to attain eventually, so that gives me a good head start. I also enjoy the various rotations that you get to go to. It gives you a lot of experience and you're able to see what you would like to do as a future dietitian.
Hang on, guys.
I chose to apply to Fresno State's internship because I love that there's an emphasis on the significance of becoming a culturally competent practitioner. There's such a variety of sites and a true desire from Professor Ireland to ensure you're able to pursue whatever your interests are.
I chose to apply at Fresno State because of their well-rounded rotations. They have one at Corcoran, the VA, you know, a lot of the local hospitals in town. So I was very interested in the rotations there. And I also liked that they had an emphasis on health promotion and disease prevention. And that was a great concentration. So I was very interested in applying to something that helping the community that I grew up in. So I chose the Fresno State Dietetic Internship Program because I was really interested in its diverse rotations, specifically the Corcoran prison rotation.
Advice I would give to another Fresno State intern applicant would be to start early and ask a lot of questions. Also, make sure you do a lot of research and really get familiar with the program and what they're about.
For future applicants, I would recommend taking initiative throughout the application process. Make sure to give yourself enough time to take the GRE, prepare for it, receive the scores you're happy with, as well as meeting the program requirements. Also, read the instructions for submission very carefully, and if it helps, reread them and ask someone else to look at them as well. Pay close attention to the details, for it will show greatly to the selection committee.
I would give advice to a future Fresno State Dietetic intern applicant to start diecast very early because there is a lot of little things that may be missed, and also to build a strong relationship with everyone who you ask for a letter of recommendation from.
Number one, always ask questions. Make sure that you understand what is going on, because there's always a lot of things that are going on during whatever program you're in or whatever course you're taking. And two, try to get involved as much as you can. Opportunities will always be available, but only if you're willing to take them.
My favorite memory from the Fresno State Dietetic Internship Program match day is that my husband was deployed most of the year and communication was really scarce, but he got permission to call me on match day. And so 2 minutes before 4 p.m. on match day, I got a phone call and we were able to find out together that I was accepted into Fresno State, which was my first choice. And that was really special.
Oh, my
That's
memory
sweet.
from that day, I remember being on FaceTime with my boyfriend and I didn't tell him that the time was coming to find out if I got matched or not. And so I was just sitting there staring at my laptop. And then I just randomly shouted out, I got matched. So that was the most exciting part of the day.
And some memories from the Fresno State Internship Program, specifically on match day, is I just remember being very relaxed because I took a hike in the morning. I was with one of my best friends and we just had peace of mind about the match. And so when we actually looked on our computers, we were just at peace with the decision.
Okay. So cancel that. There we go. All right. Okay. So that is pretty much the end of the presentation. Again, I'm not sharing my screen, so if you don't want your picture, it's okay to take that off. I will get my screen back up here, and you can just see the last slide, but it's not. Okay, so your faces should be hid now because I want to start the Q&A part of it. But the last slide really is just my contact information. So we have reached the end of the information that I know that I wanted to share with you. The one thing that I want to reiterate about the video is that one thing that our last intern, Randy Wallace, was talking about the GRE. What I want to make sure that I let you know is that the GRE has been waived by the university due to COVID and the pandemic. So that is not something that you have to do, and that shouldn't be on our website anywhere. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you don't see that. But do know that you do not have to take the GRE to apply. And it's a requirement by the university, not a requirement by us. So it's just something that they make us ask you to do. We do require that you apply to the California State University Cal Apply or Maya Cal Apply or whatever it's called through that process just as an application. But you do not have to take the GRE in it. They will not ask you for that. So that is the last thing from that I have. The only other thing that I have on my agenda that I wanted to talk about that I actually neglected to talk about, so I'm glad that we're recording this one that I did last week, is that you also, you get the stipend from the VA. There's another thing that we've tried to do, thankfully, thanks to one of the interns that you actually saw in that video, the one that had the husband that was deployed, Kelly Condren. She came from Cal Poly, and when she worked on her master's at Cal Poly, what she did her master's thesis work in was CalFresh and access to. And so she became very passionate in that particular area. And one of the things that she discovered when she was doing her research was that a lot of students should qualify for CalFresh, but are falling through the cracks based off of the CalFresh stipulations. And specifically, as we went through the internship, that definitely applied, because you're working for free and we're asking you to be full-time in a job, and you're not getting paid. You should be able to apply, but because they consider you like this student and doing this, everybody was getting rejected. And so one of the things that Kelly did was she applied for a special waiver. She knew that the Chico State Dietetics program had gotten this particular waiver before, and she was able to work her magic. And even though she was done with the internship, she was able to help us with this through our own student cupboard, which is, our assistance program that we have at the university. And now we can offer our dietetic interns this bridge where they should get applied. They should likely qualify for CalFresh. So what that means is about $225 for the month of CalFresh that you're able to get as well. So that is something you're not getting paid. You'll get a little bit of money from the VA, but we are able to offer you that partnership that we have with that waiver with CalFresh. So I did just want to mention that as well when you're thinking about places to apply. I do think it's a little carrot in our cap that can make it a little bit more of an incentive if you want to take advantage of that. So with that being said, now we can open it up to questions and answers. So I thought what I would do is in the chat, if you have a question, can you just type your name again right now or say, I have a question, and then I can call on you and you can take yourself off mute. That way everybody gets an opportunity, and I will stay on as long as needed. So I anticipate we should be done at 2, but if the dialogue is going longer because we have great questions, I'm willing to stay if people want to stay. So put that out there. So let me see now. So it looks like the first one that I have is from Wendy, and Wendy says she has a question. So Wendy, would you please take yourself off? Up next after that, we'll go Kara and then Dessa.
Yeah. Hi, I actually was at the other open house, but I was working at that time, so I couldn't really ask that many questions. But one of the questions I had was, what are some tips on how to succeed in this dietetic internship program that you or Liz might have?
Yeah, okay. So let me let Liz answer that one first, and then maybe I'll piggyback if there's anything else that she hasn't talked about. So Liz, would you like to take that one?
Yes. Okay. So one thing definitely is to be organized, and kind of build yourself a schedule. Like if you have to do other things like in life, so you have that schedule already when you go in a rotation. So let's say you work like 8 to 5. Having a schedule of what you're going to do after, or when are you going to grocery shop, or if you have a family member who's willing to grocery shop for you or cook one or two of your meals or something to help you out, because it is very different from like when you were in school and then because for me, I graduated and went directly into the internship. So sometimes I get really busy and I would have family members they would offer, because they live all next door to me. So they all kind of offer to help prepare some of my meals. And I am also a mother. So organization is like on the top of my skill set, just because I do have to care for a child as well. So accepting any help, if anyone wants to like do your laundry or like anything like that, or just building a schedule for yourself, like when you're going to do what, will definitely help you succeed, because then you won't have that stress like during the time you're working, like, oh, when am I going to get this done? So you already kind of know like what's going to happen in your life. Another thing I would suggest is kind of reviewing a little bit of material before the internship, but definitely during the internship, you will be using those skills and remembering. So it's not a big deal, but just reading up on stuff from undergrad will definitely help you. And that's all I can think of right now. So if anything else comes to mind, I'll definitely share it with you.
Thank you.
The only thing that I would also say is that I think the people that are most successful, because this is a 1-to-1 internship ratio with preceptor, is that for those that like to work independently, that they do better. So that doesn't mean though that if you're not an independent and you work better as a group, that you can't succeed. But I do think that then I would say, working at ways or looking for tips that can help you with that. Like for example, for someone who's coming, like we have this year, we have 2 people that came from, not from the area. Like one came from Michigan and the other one came from California, but was, down south, Southern California, and came up. So learning the area and learning like how long it takes them to get to places, and, needing to look at your like maps or whatever and say, okay, it says take this long, but maybe I should add a couple extra in case I get lost, and, all of those kinds of things. So just kind of working independently and working through some of those things. I would tell you that the preceptors love to be preceptors for the majority of them. They want you to ask questions. So the more questions you ask, the more you will get out of it, and they don't think it's a bad thing. But if you're asking questions that you aren't, because you're not prepared, that's different. So that's what I'm saying, that working independent, get yourself as prepared as possible, which I think is really what Liz was also talking about, like make yourself a schedule, keeping to that, trying to keep any kind of drama that you have in your personal life, lose the drama before the internship so that helps. So I hope that gives you, Wendy, a better idea of what might make you successful. The only other thing that I'll add is that because we're in the Valley and we are centrally located, that the longest rotation site is that prison site that I was telling you about, which is about an hour and 20-minute drive. So you do have to have a car. So transportation is a big deal for this part as well.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Okay, awesome. Is that the only question that you had, Wendy? Because I know you said is there anything else you have before I move on?
I can ask again later.
Okay.
It's okay. Just let the others go first.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll turn it over now to Kara. Kara, if you'd like to ask your question.
Hi. My question, I was reviewing the Fresno State website, and I read about the diabetes outpatient clinic. Can you share more information about that rotation?
Yeah, right now, currently, the diabetes outpatient is through our VA. So it is part of that process where I was telling you everybody does that one. So everybody will be offered a rotation at the diabetes outpatient. And in addition to diabetes outpatient, there's just regular outpatient at the VA, which is a little bit more like cardiovascular disease, blood pressure, just more of some other preventative medicine areas. And the VA actually has started doing home visits. Now with COVID, it kind of it's a little damper. Obviously they're doing telemedicine, but that one is also something that we would add to our lineup, where you would actually be going and doing some home visits where you actually go to a veteran's home. You're able to look in their cabinets and do some nutrition education, see if they have food insecurity, see how they're doing, see what they have access to cook, and to help them with some of these meal things. So we would do that would be a week. Then we would do a week with just general outpatient, and then we would do a week with the diabetes specific. So that particular preceptor is also a CDE, and you just focus on diabetes care through the VA on that one. Now, there is also a possibility that we've had a rotation lineup in the past where we've actually had a large endocrine practice, one of the largest endocrine practices that we have here in the Valley, as a rotation site as well. Although this year with COVID, we weren't able to have that one. So it's possible they might be willing to come back, and then that might be a rotation. And that one's weight management and diabetes. So did I answer enough for you on that one, Kara, or is there something more specific that you might be looking for?
No, thank you. That's very interesting to hear about.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so then after Kara, I have Dessa and then Reem. So Dessa, please go ahead.
Hi, I also attended last week's open house and I had gathered a few more questions. I was looking through the website and can you go over like we have to submit a graduate application on CalStat Apply and then print off and mail a supplemental application?
Yes.
Can you briefly go over that?
Yes, and so maybe what I should do is get my website up so that everybody can see what we're talking about. So give me a minute and hopefully I have to get off of my screen sharing and then go back to this one. Okay, now let me bring up our website. So okay, so you should be seeing our homepage. Everybody seeing the homepage? Okay, awesome. Okay, so when you go to how to apply, it's got these steps. And so you do your DICAS application and then you submit a graduate application through CalApply. Then what I want you to do is once you've done that, you can print that off and mail that to me. Now it used to be that you had to submit that and the GRE, but since we're not doing the GRE, it's just that. Now, here is what I've been telling people is that you apply through CalApply, there's a fee involved. So the fee I think is $70. I don't know if someone's already done it, you can put it in the chat because I'm not exactly sure how much it is. But that fee is for just to apply to the university. Now we don't have a fee to apply to our internship program. And that's because you have to pay that fee. Now, what we are able to do this semester because of everything going on is that if you want to wait on applying through CalApply, you can, but once you match with our program, you'll have to remember to do that. I will not be able to remind you to do that, which is why some people just go ahead and do it anyways. But in order to be accepted to the university, we can accept people into our program up through April, which is after match day. So if you want to wait and hold off on that, that's fine. But what I want you to do is send me a page, something, some supplemental paperwork that tells me I'm not going to apply. I'm going to hold off until after match day. I still need to get something like that in the mail from you. So it can either be a print off email that says, congratulations, you've applied through CalApply. Or it can be a note to me that says, I'm going to hold off and wait until match day, and then I will go into CalApply and I will apply. So hopefully, Dessa, that makes more sense. But I have to have either one of those things mailed to me, and I need them in my office, and they need to be postmarked by February 15th, because what I'm trying to do, what helps me is know who's applying to our program. And what typically happens here is I tell you in step 1, you can submit your DICAS application when you're ready. And what I mean by that is even if your people that are writing letters of recommendation for you have not submitted, you can still submit your application. And I want you to do that. Most directors want you to do that. The reason being is then you populate into my portal and I know how many people are applying to my program. It's a lot of work on the backside with our selection committee. And the earlier I can tell them how many applicants we have and how much time they're going to have to invest, it's going to help them in their schedules, because it's very compact. After we get your application on February 15th, we tend to hold our phone interviews, which they say phone, but they're really virtual interviews just like this over Zoom. So we do that Zoom interview really at the end of February, first part of March, like that week between the last week in February and that first week in March. And we interview anybody that we are considering for our program. So if you get called for an interview, that means that we are considering you, and our selection committee is going to review your entire packet. So the earlier I can get them your entire packet so that they can start that review process, the better, but I can't do that until after we do the interviews. So the faster I can interview, which means the faster I can go through and check everybody's application and make sure that they meet all the minimum requirements that are required, the faster it goes. So why I'm telling you all that again is you can click submit. You will come into my portal, even if your one person like your DPD director, they have lots of letters to write and they might, be waiting until the last minute. Don't panic. They will. And what'll happen is you will be in my submitted. And once you're in the submitted, you'll populate into my completed once that person submits their letter. I just need to know how many people are applying. So I hope I didn't confuse everybody with that, but do know that you can submit your application through DICAS when you're ready, even if your letters of recommendation are not. And so sometimes what was helpful is if I got these names of people too, so that I could see who was in DICAS and who's applying this way, so that I could figure out my numbers. So again, the numbers, I don't care. I just need, the earlier you can postmark this to me, if you do the Cal Apply, or if you just know you're applying to our program, go ahead and send me a letter that says, I'm not going to do Cal Apply, but I will if I get matched to your program and I'm applying to your program, because that's going to help me build a profile and a folder for you. It's actually going to help my administrative assistant start doing that stuff so we can start getting you in our pipeline so we know how many people are applying. Did that answer your question, Dessa?
Yes, but so after we're done with all the Cal State Apply and we've done that, do we just send you a confirmation like that we've done that, and we have to mail it to you or email?
Mail it to me is what I was asking for,
okay.
Because I need a postmark on it. But yeah, just a confirmation email, just the email that you get once you've applied that says congratulations. You could take a screenshot of that last thing that says congratulations, you'd apply, something, anything that just indicates that you've applied so that you're in our system. That's all I'm looking for.
Thank you. Also, I have one more question.
Sure.
You've mentioned that we could get loans through FAFSA, right? When do we exactly apply for that? Do we apply for that after we get matched?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yes, you will do that. You can do that as soon as, what happens after those that match to our program, I will typically do a Zoom call like this with everybody and tell them like, what are the next steps and what should you be expecting next? And that's one of the things that I talk about is if you're interested in the student loans, that you should go into FAFSA, and then I tell you exactly what you should be like applying for, like fifth year graduate, like all of that stuff. And the thing is that you have to be accepted into our university. FAFSA has to see that too. So that's why I kind of wait just a little bit until after match day. Then we have a conference call and then I go over that stuff. But yeah, so I will let you know when it's time to do that. But you technically can go into FAFSA and do that. But there's just some terms that you want to make sure that you get right. Sometimes people pick the wrong one and then they end up saying you don't qualify for a federal student loan and everybody freaks out. So I don't want that to happen because everybody does qualify.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, now let me go back to, I moved my chat thing, so I have to go back and see who was our next. I think it was Reem.
Hello. My question is, are all rotation sites will be around the same area, or we have to travel for long distances sometimes?
That's a good question. So for the most part, they're in the city of Fresno. However, there are a few that are outliers. And so there is some travel. Like I mentioned, the Corcoran State Prison is one that you will travel. We also have one of our clinical hospitals. So the way that we split it up is that we start you at a starter hospital. So it's a smaller hospital. We have two small hospitals in our area. One is called Clovis Community Medical Center. The other is called Madera Community Medical Center. So Madera is just a city north of Fresno. So it's about 30 to 45-minute drive, depending on where you live in Fresno. So you'd have to drive to that one. Clovis is it's right next to Fresno, and they almost intermesh with each other. So there's usually no more than 10 to 15-minute drive to that one. So there is for certain ones. The other one that we have where if you were paired to that one, that you might have a drive is with our school nutrition. You can either go to two different sites. So when you look at the website for school nutrition, you'll see one that says Kings Canyon Unified School District and one that says Clovis Unified School District. So Clovis, like I mentioned, is very close. Kings Canyon's a little bit farther, again, 30 to 45-minute drive if you're living in Fresno. So what I try to do is if somebody has to travel they have to go to Madera for the clinical nutrition, I try not to have them have to go to Kings Canyon Unified so that they're driving twice. Like I try to be mindful of that. But again, making the schedule for 11 interns doing one-to-one with 21 different preceptor affiliate sites is a huge stress ball. So I'm not always able to do that, but not really more than 45 minutes would be what I would suspect. Also, we brought in a new preceptor this year that was in Visalia. So that was one that was also about a 45-minute drive. And that one was for 3 weeks. So I would anticipate 45 minutes to an hour drive. But again, some people that are coming from the LA area are used to that. You just aren't mileaging it out, but you're spending that much time in the car. So most people aren't going to spend more than an hour in the car for any of the rotations. But we tend to have most of them in the city of Fresno, which is more like a 10 or 20-minute drive.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, looks like I have the next question. Sarah, would you like to ask the next question?
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, have you ever chosen an intern that had little to no previous experience working or volunteering?
Yeah, okay, so that's a good question. So this is how I tried to explain it on the last open house. And anybody that comes to my office and wants to ask about what we do, how our selection process works, what I can tell you is that it's a scoring rubric. Now, I can't give you the points breakdown of that, but what I can tell you is the areas in which you get points. So that will hopefully answer your question, and I'll come back to it kind of right at the end, and I hope that it does. But so for example, if I'm looking at my scoring rubric, what we're looking at is to apply to our program, what we're asking is that you have a minimum GPA of 3.0 overall, right? But if you have higher than that, then you will get additional points. So that's kind of like an area when we look at your academics. So is it possible that someone didn't have a lot of work experience but had very strong academics? They'd score higher in that particular area, and it might balance out. So I kind of gave away the cart before the horse, but so the answer is yes. But think about, these are the areas that I want every applicant to think about. So we have the academic area. We also do allow more points if someone is coming to us with already having a master's. So those that have a master's or higher would also be eligible to get more points in the academic area. Now, the next area that we look at is your personal statement. So your personal statement gets scored. And when we look at that, we're looking at, what do you have to tell us? And so the advice that I tend to give people is that when you are writing your personal statement, at least for our selection committee I'm speaking for, that we are all really dietitians and work in areas of dietetics, and we're familiar with the areas of dietetics and what the positions do. So for example, if you were a diet clerk somewhere, we know what the position of a diet clerk does. So you don't have to, in your personal statement, reiterate all of those things. What we're more looking for, if you're talking about your experience as a diet tech or a diet aide or whatever, is what did you bring or take away from that experience. You can talk about those things. Those are like the aha, like, you know, after I walked out of that patient's room and that just, it all clicked to me. That's what you put in your personal statement, not I brought trays, I helped people. Like, we know all of that. So that's what I would say, at least in that. And then the other part is that, you know, ask somebody who has doesn't know you, have them read your personal statement, and that should be able to ask them at the end, who am I? Who am I? And if they can't tell you what you thought you wrote in that letter, A, they either don't read very well, or B, then that's not a good, you're not getting a good summary of who you are and what you want our program to talk to you about. Because think of it this way, we have a stack of, you know, 60 applicants. We have to get to know you, and how we get to know you is through that personal statement, and then the next part, which is your letters of recommendation. So if someone reading that who doesn't know you, which we may not know you, we have to get to know you in that letter. And that's the idea. So that's hopefully what I could share with you about personal statements. Then the next thing that I mentioned is your letters of recommendation. We do require 1B from your DPD. It does not matter who the other letters are from. It can be employers, it can be academic, it can be whatever. So again, trying to answer your question, even if it's not work experience that you've had that's directly related, if you have letters of recommendation, what you want is someone who's going to write you a strong letter of recommendation. You want to make sure that the person that's going to write that letter is going to say something about you, because what we're looking at as a selection committee is, here's the personal statement. This is what the personal statement said about the person. Now, does this mirror these other people? Do they mirror what they're saying? So it's important for them to write the things about you that are very similar to what you're writing in your personal statement. The example that I gave in the last call was that we had an applicant who was a scribe, a medical scribe at a hospital, which is a very stressful job and is very, you know, very unique, and had a lot of aspiration with it. But the person that wrote her letter, she asked one of the physicians to write the letter. And having worked with physicians, the physician wrote in the little area where you're supposed to write a letter, because he is not a dietitian, he didn't know, he wrote, I strongly recommend her for your program. She will be very good. And that was it. Now, granted, knowing a physician, knowing that the fact that he took the time to do that, he probably really recommends her, thinks she's great. But he didn't tell me anything in that letter right there. Like, that didn't help anything out. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, you want the person, whether they are dietetics related or not, if they're your employer that you've had for the last 7 years and you've worked with them, and they know that you've worked with them, they can speak about the uniqueness that you have, but they need to do that. And they may not know that they have to do that, because they still have to check all these boxes and say, you know, what a great employee you were. But then it says, you know, list their strengths and list their weaknesses. If they don't know that that's a letter that we're looking for, then that could hold you back. So that's why I like to point that out as well. Then the next section that we have is that interview, that phone interview that we talk about, or at least this conference thing that we're going to do. It's a 15-minute. We're not going to ask you any crazy clinical questions. We might ask you a clinically question, but it's something that anybody that's been through a DPD program could reiterate. You don't have to know like M&T, like the whole steps of diabetes care or something like that. Like, it's not that. But so that it's a 15-minute interview. You get scored for that. That's an area. We ask you for your resume. You get scored for that. Now is where I'm going to talk about, we ask you about your awards and your certifications and your affiliations. Nobody should leave that area blank. There should be something everybody could put there. It's just a lot of times people don't think. So when you go back to your DICAS application, make sure that you have extracurriculars, awards and certifications, all of that stuff filled out, because we're giving you points for all of those things that are there in that particular area. Now, the next section is that work experience that DICAS has. And so to answer your question about, you know, the work experience, even if it's not paid or volunteer, the way that ours works is that you get a score for having paid, and you get a score for having volunteer. So if you have both, that's the most diverse, right? That's the best. That's going to yield you the best points possible. But answering again your question is if it's possible that someone, that's only 2 areas of this whole rubric. So could we take and accept someone that has no experience? Yes. And especially right now, one thing that I will say is that we suspect that a lot of people are not going to have as much work experience, specifically because of COVID right now. Like that work experience got smashed for all of you that were trying to get that in. And so we know that. So that's not the only areas that we're looking at. Now, the last little area that we have that I just want to reiterate that we have is that we have this one little area that says other. And so that's where if there's something unique about you, we can put it there, like speaking another language, doing traveling abroad. One time we had an applicant who was from a city, a small city, but she was on the city council. And that was something different. That's leadership. You know, that's not something that we've had, you know, that's unique about them. We put that in that area. Now, you can only get, I'm only going to tell you guys can only get 2 points in that particular area. But the point being is that there's still this other little area where, again, if you had someone that because they didn't have that work experience, but they had some other unique things, they can still get more points. So I hope that that has helped you a little bit understand how our selection process is going to work and going to score you. And like I mentioned before, anybody who's offered an interview, you can guarantee if you have an interview that every single person on my selection panel is going to review your personal packet. And we're going to go through and we're going to score you that same way that we do. Everybody does it independently. Then we come back together as a group of our selection committee. And that's when we look at the points, we take the averages, and that's when we make our recommendations. And that's where we do our rankings and send that to D&D Digital. So did that help you?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Okay, and then after Sarah, Wendy, thank you for telling me it's $70 for CalApply. Thank you, I needed to know that. So 70 again. So if you want to save the $70, I understand that it's getting more and more expensive. I just got an email today that said DICAS increased their cost. So we are trying to make it as economical as possible. I just need to know that you didn't apply. I need a piece of paper or something that tells me that so I know. And then that you're going to remember to do that after you match, because I'm not going to remember that. Okay, so thank you. And then sounds like you have another question, Wendy, so let's go ahead and take that one.
Yeah, so I know for the last open house meeting we had, you mentioned that there is a special track for nutrition therapy essentials. And I was wondering if that is part of a separate rotation or is it part of like our elective? I just wanted to know like how long it will be too if someone does decide to choose that special track.
Great question. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to write it. Not that I'm doing another one of these open houses, but I better write this down for my next agenda when I come back. Okay. Nutrition Therapies Essentials is a consulting company. They are very big here in the Valley, and they are also very big in the Bay Area. And what they did is a few years ago, they came to me and they said, you know, we really think that your internship is a pipeline for our dietetic consultant dietitians that we have, but they're only spending 1 to 2 weeks with us, and that's just not enough time for them to get to know who we are. And we would like to invest in your intern and have them spend a little bit more time with us in hopes that maybe they want to actually be a consultant dietitian, and then we can seamlessly offer them a job. So I'm like, yes, it's like a win-win. And that's really what an internship is about, is that you go to these different places, you see what you like, and then they also get to kind of see if they like you. And what I can tell you about the Central Valley is that the Central Valley does have a need for dietitians. We have way more need than the positions available. So if you Googled right now, dietitians in the Central Valley, you could probably find, I have not done it, but it's usually about 12 open positions at any given time. So we don't have a problem once our interns finish our program. Once they pass the exam, if they want to stay local, they get a job. But this is just one more seamless way in which they can do that. And Nutrition Therapies Essentials can actually hire them right away while they're studying, because they can hire them as a dietary service supervisor type of position and then transition them into a consulting RD. So to answer your question, it's a special track. So we're going to accept 11 people into our dietetic internship. I'm going to ask for one intern that has an interest in possibly study consulting dietetics with Nutrition Therapies Essentials. And then they spend their entire time with Nutrition Therapies Essentials, except a few rotations. Like most people are interested in going to the prison. So for example, this cohort that I have right now, the gentleman that's doing this is named Andrew. So he's doing the Nutrition Therapies Essential track. We have people apply for it at the once you've already been accepted into our program. Those that are interested, I have Nutrition Therapies Essentials come and talk about it to the interns, and then all the interns apply, and then we pick one of the applicants. And so this year it was Andrew. And so Andrew is doing it with them, but for example, he was interested in the prison, and he was interested because they don't have a WIC rotation. Maybe he wanted to do WIC. Now, actually, he wasn't interested in WIC because he's like, I'm a male. I don't really want to do that one. He didn't have to. But so I have a way in which we can build that into their rotation lineup. But you pretty much just do all of the Nutrition Therapies Essentials consulting. Now, why this is really cool for some people that don't know is that if you're interested in nutrition support, skilled nursing is where you get a lot of tube feeding and a lot of tube feeders for life. And so you really hone your skills at tube feeding. So this is really actually a clinical experience in itself. Plus our Nutrition Therapies Essentials has a contract with the Heart Hospital, which is who does bariatric and gastric bypasses. And so you get access to doing that. So when you go through the Nutrition Therapies Essentials, you will be pretty much the 1,000 hours, the supervised practice 1,000 hours that you're required would be done all with Nutrition Therapies Essentials, with the exception of we can tweak it for the elective, and we can tweak it for some of these unique rotations. But for the most part, it's all going to be done at the accounts that Nutrition Therapies Essentials has. So did that, Wendy, answer your question?
Yeah, that was incredibly helpful. So if someone wanted to do like the diabetes rotation, they would still be able to do it in addition to the special track. Okay.
Yeah, we won't cut anything out that they're really, really wanting. But the idea is that we're they're looking for someone that possibly, now, do they have to? Does the other thing is that if I am interested in this track, if I do all of this and then I decide at the end of it I don't like it, do I have to? No. But they're investing their time to make it seamless so that it's possible. And they're hoping that you will, but you don't have to. The first year we did it, the person really wasn't that interested in doing that. But she ended up doing a little bit of on the side. So she's doing a little consulting for them, but they ended up hiring another one of our interns for their full-time position that they had. So, that's just the idea of how it would work. It doesn't have to work that way. And you are certainly not going to be signing a contract that says you have to do it one way or the other. So hopefully that helps, but it's just a unique opportunity that we like to offer that some places don't necessarily get so much. And again, for those that are interested in, becoming nutrition support dietitians, this is a way in which you can do that without going directly into a hospital and getting your hours to do that.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Awesome. So I don't have any more questions in the chat. Is there anybody else that has any other question that they want to ask? It's okay now. Sarah, one more?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I'm sorry if this is already, if you've already said it, but how many applications do you typically get each year?
Well, I think it's a good question. You should ask that to any internship that you guys are applying for, by the way, because it helps you look at your odds too. So it's a very smart question. And no, it was not asked on this call, and it was asked on the last one. So we typically do average 60. However, what I can tell you is that the last 2 years we have not. We've been a lot less, which is also what I think a lot of people have been saying, internships in general, and looking at the amount of people that are applying to internships. So last year and the year before, we were at 35 and 40. So 2 years ago, I had 40 people apply. Of the 40, there were about 5 that didn't meet the minimum qualifications, meaning that they didn't take the GRE or they didn't have the 3.0. So they were eliminated. So we reviewed 35 applicants 2 years ago. Then last year, we actually had 35 applicants, and of the 35, there were still 5 that didn't follow directions and look at the minimum qualifications. So we had to boot 5 people out. But then we reviewed 30. So when you're looking at your, ability to match with our program, we have 11 slots in either 30 or 35 applicants. That really raises your match rate. So that is actually really good. So you should keep that in mind. And overall, from what I understand, the match rate nationwide last year was phenomenal. Blew everybody out of the water. So I do encourage you all should apply, and please understand, we do all know that we'll have less experience because of COVID with the amount of hours in those particular areas. We're expecting that. And our preceptors are going to be, our job as directors is to get the preceptors to really understand that, look, these people are going to come in and maybe they haven't had as much experience. So that's okay. That's the way the educational system is working. So good. Is there anybody else that has a question that they want to ask? Any questions for Liz? And Liz, is there anything else that you want to add? Is there anything that sparked, anything that came through that you think you might want to share?
I know I've been there last year. I can't believe it's already been a year since, going through the whole application process and just having, just being nervous for like those first couple of months and the day of, and just breathe and just get everything done. And I wish you guys good luck. And if you guys have any other questions for me, I'll be glad to answer those.
Yeah, I think
I had a question for Liz. Did you graduate from Fresno State University?
Yes, I did. I graduated in last year.
Yeah, we don't give special points for anybody that comes from Fresno State. So everybody's on the same level playing field. The way that it usually works, depending on the years, is that sometimes we have about like 60-40, 40-60 of Fresno State to non-Fresno State. So like right this year, we had someone who came from Michigan. Then we had someone who came from Cal State Northridge. And then even with the other ones, like they may have been from the area, but did their undergrad other places. So like one came from Cal Poly SLO, but she's from here. So, I enjoy diversity, really. I mean, that's what our program concentration is all about, right? Culturally competent. So, to me, the more diverse we have, the better. So again, there's no extra points for coming from Fresno State, but because we are that feeder, we do statistically have more applicants from Fresno State than we do other places. But I think that's just because it's our program and they're comfortable and they're from here, and and they might have situations and circumstances in which they need to stay locally in the area. So yeah.
I have a question for Liz.
Sure.
Upon matching and preparing for the interview, what would be your best advice for preparing for the interview?
Just making sure you're kind of already reviewed the website online and make sure you're not asking like those repetitive questions. Just being prepared. I actually asked like past interns if you know of any, like what kind of questions should I see, or like kind of just to bring my nerves down and not be so nervous, but just like Erica mentioned, like it's nothing too that you can't answer with. It's like common knowledge for someone in our career path. It's not anything like no calculating, nothing crazy like that. But just, I know when they she sends you a date to book your interview, just do that one fast whenever you can, just because someone else might book their interview at a time you wanted. Just make sure you're looking out for an email from her.
Yeah, that's a good point, Liz. The way that works is that I send out a BCC, so no one sees who's being invited. But I send a mass email out to all those being invited. And so it's like a doodle poll where you go and you click the time that you want to have your interview site time. So the faster you do it, the more availability there's going to be. What we try to do is I try to have the interviews all on one day. And the reason for that really has to do with the availability of my preceptors or my selection committee, really is they're the ones that are going to be going through this. If we have them all on one day, we're able to usually keep the same selection committee. And so therefore there's not a selection committee member that sat on these interviews this day, but then there was a different person that sat on these interviews, and it skews the scores. So we try to do it all on one day. So, and we try to have morning and afternoon so that, you know, some people that might have class on that day, but again, it's only 15 to 20 minutes. So typically when you tell, even if you have your employers, it's usually good if they're dietetics related, you know, they know this is a big deal, and they'll give you 15 minutes in a room, you know, where you can have quiet, and they usually can allow you to do that. So that's usually what happens. And again, it's like Liz said, it's me. We try to, you know, put you at ease, and we don't want you to be nervous. We just want to get to know you a little bit. We have some questions we're going to ask you. So, yeah. Anybody else? Okay. Well,
I have a question. I did put it on chat.
Sorry.
Are the interviews counted towards that point system? And if so, how many points is it?
Yeah, good question. So I'm not really going to divulge like the total points. Well, I'll tell you, total points possible is 100. Like it's a grading rubric when I look at all those categories. So I'm not going to tell you how much the interview is per se. But what I can tell you is it's not a majority of it. We don't put it we don't put our eggs all in one basket. We really try to diversify our rubric in looking at the different areas and knowing that what we are looking for is a candidate that's well skilled in all areas. And so what we mean by that is, you know, is that someone that can, you know, has a good personal statement, has good things from their people to say about them, has got involved at some point with something, you know, like with extracurriculars, whether it's dietetic related or their church, or did they get awards, you know. So we're looking for this, you know, well diversified person. And so it's kind of scoring in between. And just if someone did, you know, poorly on the interview, would that mess them up? Not necessarily. Again, it depends on where they score. So that's kind of what I think I can tell you is that that's not going to, once you get the interview, when you know you got the interview, that's just a portion of that rubric. You are getting fully evaluated. And so even if you feel like, oh God, I tanked that, you have other areas that you're being looked at. So don't stress about it.
Thank you. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, no, I want you guys to, I think we want you to be comfortable. We don't make it, I mean, yes, there's going to be myself and usually like 2 or 3 other people from our selection committee that are going to be there, and we're going to take turns asking you questions. And yes, that's always nerve-wracking in any event, even when I interview, even at my age, and been through many, many interviews, you still get nervous, you still get all those things. But, you know, my goal is to try to make you as at ease as possible for that, because we want you to choose the right internship too. And usually by the time, this is kind of a funny story, but by the time that you actually have the interview, we do ours earlier on. And so it's usually before, I think, when you can switch your diecast like ranks of where you guys, or D&D, I should say, like where you can tell D&D who your top choices are. First of all, as a director, we never see any of that. So you should put whatever you guys really want as your first choice, because it's to your advantage to do it that way. But what we've had is people after they've done interviews, or I've heard like candidates that after they've done an interview and they think, oh God, I did so awful at that one, they moved that one down on their ranking or whatever. You have the opportunity at least to do that after you've done ours, but we're not trying to make it stressful like that. We want you to enjoy your internship. just as much as, so we want to choose the right fit too. We want you to choose the right fit, and we want to choose the right fit. We want that perfect match. And that is what makes it good. And so here's my story, is that when you rank and then we rank, right? That's the way D&D works, and that's how they get the big bucks, right? So what happens is that after everybody has their interview and all of my selection committee has reviewed everybody, they send me their rubrics, we average them out, we get together as a committee, and that's when we make our rankings. And when we rank somebody, when we put them on our page, that they, even if they're number 1 or if they're number 15, what we know, if we put them even at 15, is that we are willing to have them in our internship. And just because they are 15 doesn't mean they were scoring wise, maybe 1 did better than 15, but what we're saying is they're all worthy of an internship. And so what happens with that number is that, so if we had 30 applicants, let's say, we tend to we'll rank up to like 23, 25 interns usually, because the person that we rank number 1 might not have chose us as number 1. And so they're going to go, if they were ranked by their place, they're going to go there. And so all of a sudden we tend to go down on our list. So even our top 10 aren't necessarily who we get. So just like on match day, like you guys log on, so do the directors. We get on and we're doing the same thing because we're trying to see who we matched with too. And so this is the funny story. So what happens is one year we did it. And so I get on and I log in, and my computer where I'm at in my home office, like you can see my background right here, but right next to me is my husband's computer setup. It's the same as mine. So he's sitting next to me. So here I go and I log in and I'm doing it. And I'm looking at the names, and I'm looking at the ranking, and I'm looking at my list that I had that I submitted to D&D, and my jaw, I'm like that, like my mouth is open, and my husband's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Why is your jaw like that? Like, what's going on? And I said, you will not believe it, but we ranked the top 10, which never happens historically. You usually go down on your list because number 1 never picks you. Like, it's just the way that it goes. So anyways, then our number 1 candidate, why I'm telling you all the stories, our number 1 candidate had a PhD. She lived in San Francisco, and she could have went to UCSF or anywhere she wanted to go. And I thought, why on earth would you come to godforsaken Fresno? And so I had to know, like, I'm from the Valley, guys. I've lived here since the 6th grade. So I had to know, why would you not go to San Francisco? I would die to be in San Francisco. She was already there. That's where she had residency. She went to Penn State for her PhD. I mean, on paper, she was phenomenal. And I thought, why would she want us? So I had to ask her. So I asked her. So this is all my funny story. I said, why did you do that? And you know what she said? It came down to that interview. And she said, you were the nicest person in the interview, and you made me feel more comfortable than the rest of the places. So I changed my ranking. So not to tout but I'm just telling you guys that as go with your gut and go with what you want, and know that at least for our internship, like, who I am is I want you to have a positive experience. I want you to love dietetics as much as I do. And that's why I do what I do. And so we want you to succeed. And so I'm not trying to put up barriers. I'm the yin to the yang. There's someone out, I'm sure, at every university that is the hard-nosed, like, whip, gets you into shape. I'm not that person. I'm the other person. I'm the one that pumps everybody up and tells them to do good. And we're at the end of this trail, and you got to get this last chapter in your life. That's my job. So anyways, I hope that you do consider Fresno State as one of your best. And again, you tell me it's your best, I will never know one way or the other. You do your rankings the way you want, but we would love to have all of you. I look forward to having all of your names appear in my diecast portal. So with that being said, is there any last minute, anybody that wants to ask a question? I'm looking at the chat because I missed Sandra's before, so I'll make sure. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, then we have summed it up 30 minutes over the time that I thought it would take, but that's the same time it took the other one. So in that sense, I still am going to record this. This one did record, and it recorded much better than my last one. So we are going to have this up on our website. But again, if you put in the chat that you'd like to have a link, I'll send you our link to this as well, if you'd like to have it. Lisbeth was doing that. So last minute, if anybody wants to have a copy of this because the questions, you think you might need to go back to them or whatever, feel feel free to put it in the chat right now. Otherwise, I thank you for your time. I wish you well in your endeavors, whether it's Fresno State or not. Pursue your goals and keep up the good work. Yes, it's competitive, but it's okay. Keep going with your dreams. It will come true. We've had people matched to our program that applied the first year, didn't get in, but applied the second year and got in. We even had one that did a third year and got in. So don't get discouraged if you don't get in, but right now your odds are strongly increased. So go for it. Go for it. All right. So that's all I have. So thank you guys very much. You're welcome. And yes, thank you to Liz as well. I want to shout out to Liz for taking the time. She's doing her elective rotation right now, which happens to be with me doing student teaching. So, but thank you for taking the time out of the student teaching role to be a mentor to everybody else. So, all right. Have a great rest of your day, you guys, and have a great rest of your week. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.